George Raveling. George Henry Raveling, born June 27, 1937, is an American former college basketball player and coach. He played at Villanova University and was the head coach at Washington State University, the University of Iowa, and the University of Southern California. Raveling has been Nike's global basketball sports marketing director since he retired from coaching in 1994. FOX Sports Net color commentator, he is a member of the Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Fame. Earlier life. Born and raised in Washington, D.C., Raveling did not play basketball until his 9th grade year. He was enrolled at St. Michael's, a Catholic boarding school in Holborn Heights, Pennsylvania. It was founded as an orphanage in 1916 near Scranton and closed in 2010. His grandmother's employer helped him enroll. Raveling's father died when he was 9 and his mother was institutionalized when he was 13, so academics became among the most influential forces in his life. College and early career. Raveling attended college at Villanova University near Philadelphia and played basketball for the Wildcats. An outstanding rebounder, he set school single game and season rebounding records in his time. Raveling was team captain in his senior season, featured in the cover of the 1960 Media Guide, and led the Wildcats to consecutive appearances in the National Invitation Tournament in 1959 and 1960. The Philadelphia Warriors selected him in the 8th round, pick 7 of the 1960 NBA draft. Raveling became an assistant coach at his alma mater Villanova, then moved to Maryland in 1969 on staff of new head coach Lefty Driesell. He became the first African-American coach in the Atlantic Coast Conference. March on Washington with Martin Luther King Jr. 1963. On August 28, 1963, as Martin Luther King Jr. waved goodbye to an audience of over 250,000 March on Washington participants, Raveling asked King if he could have the speech. King handed Raveling the original typewritten "I Have a Dream" pages. Raveling was on the podium with King at that moment, having volunteered to provide security. He kept the original and had been offered more than $3 million for the speech in 2013. He declined the offer. In 2021, he gave it to Villanova University. It is intended to be used in a long-term on-loan arrangement. Washington State 1970–1983. Washington State 1970–1983. Hired in Pullman and Raveling was the first African-American basketball coach in the Pacific-8 Conference, Pac-8, now Pac-12. He guided the Washington State Cougars with 2 encore tournament appearances during his 11 years. The first was in 1980 and marked the first time WSU was included in the encore bracket since the runner-up finish in 1941. The second was 3 years later in 1983. Raveling was one of the winningest coaches in Washington State basketball history, with a record in 7 winning seasons, including 5 straight from the 1975-76 campaign through the 1980 season. While at WSU, Raveling was the West Regional coach at the 1979 U.S. Olympic Sports Festival and an assistant coach for the U.S. Olympic Trials in 1980. Among his outstanding players were James Donaldson, Craig Alo, Don Collins, Brian Risson, and Steve Harriel, who all earned all Pac-10 first-team honors. Donaldson went on to play in the NBA for 14 years and was on the Western Conference team for the All-Star Game in 1988. Collins played in both the NBA and CBA after setting the WSU record for career steals and finishing 3rd in scoring. Alo, a junior college transfer from Texas, was selected in the 3rd round of the 1983 NBA draft by the Houston Rockets. He played 14 seasons with 4 NBA teams, amassing respectable career totals of 7,492 points, 2,456 assists, and 3,139 rebounds. Raveling was the UPI Pac-8 Coach of the Year winner in 1976, its Coach of the Year twice, 1976 shared, 1983, and was the national runner-up for AP Coach of the Year. He was honored by WSU with his induction into the Pac-12 Hall of Honor. Iowa 1983–1986. Iowa 1983–1986. Raveling succeeded Lute Olson as head coach at the University of Iowa in April 1983 and guided the Hawkeyes to consecutive 20-win seasons and encore tournament berths in 1985 and 1986. 1984 Olympics. Assistant coach. At the Olympics in 1984 in Los Angeles, he served as the assistant coach for the United States of America team composed of collegians. Bob Knight was the head coach, and Steve Alford and Michael Jordan were guards on that team. Shooting 63.9% from the floor, the U.S. team captured the 9th Olympic title with a convincing 96-65 victory over Spain in the gold medal game. During his 3 years at Iowa, Raveling is probably best known for his recruits and outstanding players, including B.J. Armstrong, Kevin Gamble, Ed Horton, Roy Marble, and Greg Stokes, all of whom went on to play in the NBA. USC 1986–1994. USC 1986–1994. In March 1986, he returned to the Pac-Manus 10 as head coach for the University of Southern California USC in Los Angeles. Hank Gathers and Bo Kimball were recruited to USC by head coach Stan Morrison and his top assistant David Spencer. They were joined by high school All-American Tom Lewis and Rich Grant as the four freshman star recruiting class. Following an 11-17 season coaching USC, Morrison and Spencer were fired after the 1985-86 season was over, despite winning the Pac-Manus 10 the previous year. It was reported that the players would not remain unless certain conditions were met, including having a say in the next coaching staff. USC hired Raveling as the next head coach of the Trojans. Raveling gave the players a deadline to respond whether they would remain on the team. When they did not respond, he revoked the scholarships of Gathers, Kimball, and Lewis. Raveling's controversial statement was, "You can't let the Indians run the reservation," he said. "You've got to be strong too. Sometimes you have to tell them that they have to exit." Kimball and Gathers transferred together from USC to Loyola Marymount. Lewis transferred to Pepperdine. Grant remained at USC. During Raveling's career at USC, the Trojans advanced to the NCAA tournament in 1991 and 1992 and competed in the NIT in 1993 and 1994. Raveling was named Kodak National Coach of the Year 1992, Basketball Weekly Coach of the Year 1992, Black Coaches Association Coach of the Year 1992, and CBS/Chevrolet National Coach of the Year 1994. Raveling and Sonny Vaccaro had been close friends to the point that he was the best man at Sonny's second wedding. But Raveling had a falling out with Sonny over the business of summer high school basketball camps that Sonny ran. Car accident and coaching retirement, 1994. On the morning of September 25, 1994, Raveling's Jeep was blindsided in a two-car collision in Los Angeles. He was seriously injured, suffering 9 broken ribs, a fractured pelvis and clavicle, and he was in intensive care due to bleeding in his chest cavity for 2 weeks. Citing the automobile accident and planned lengthy rehabilitation, he retired as head coach of USC at the age of 57 on. Post-coaching. Raveling has worked as the director for international basketball for Nike since his retirement from USC and has authored 2 books on rebounding drills, War on the Boards, and a Rebounder's Workshop. He has served as a color commentator for CBS Sports and FOX Sportsnet, often drawing assignments for Pac-Manus 10 conference games. Raveling has the original typewritten "I Have a Dream" speech given to him by Martin Luther King Jr. On September 8, 2018, he was selected by former University of Maryland head basketball coach Lefty Driesell as one of Driesell's presenters upon his induction into the Naismith Hall of Fame. Awards. In 2013, he received the John W. Bunn Lifetime Achievement Award by the Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Fame. On November 21, 2013, he was a recipient of the Latchick Award in memory of Joe Latchick, Street John's basketball coach, together with Don Haskins and Teresa Grant. Raveling was inducted into the College Basketball Hall of Fame in 2013. On February 14, 2015, it was announced that George Raveling would be inducted into the Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Fame when he selected for direct election by the Contributor Direct Election Committee.